Welcome to another session. I hope you are well. I begin this week with a series that I hope over the long term will provide some value to those who either take the advice or who generally just listen. I'm going to be speaking over the next couple of sessions about this new phenomenon that has come to stay. In the past few weeks, I have been puzzled by this Onlyfans phenomenon. I should clarify that I do not refer to non-sexual content. I think those are necessary and therefore I cannot speak to them. My puzzlement has come with regards to the sexual side of OnlyFans, those who produce and provide sexual content. One of the reasons I thought perhaps it would be important for me to do a series is because I think it's necessary, I think it's relevant, and I think over the long term, we as society, we will look back at ourselves and wonder why we stood back and did nothing, or we stood back and pointed fingers and never provided words of encouragement, wisdom, guidance, solutions, and general thoughts. What I intend to do in this series is look at things from both sides. Now, every coin has three sides: heads, tail, and then the edge. Now, wisdom and decision making, and those who have good judgment with regards to decision making, comes from the ability to stand on the edge. If you stand on the edge of the coin, you can look to one perspective and appreciate what you see. But you can also look to the other perspective and recognize the contrast. I will be discussing both sides of the coin. Now, one of the reasons I've decided to deal with this is because in my gut instinct is to wave my hand and say, this is wrong. And young ladies, you should not do such. And you should be better than this. And you should aspire to much better from a position of, you might say, philosophy and principles or beliefs or character or ethics or values. I'm going to put all of that to the side. And I'm going to focus on how I can provide value, particularly to women who have been drawn into this OnlyFans economy, which in many ways, like most things, has a season. And the season will come and the season will go. The most important question is, how do we ensure that we provide our women with the support they need to get through what is an exciting season currently, but more importantly, to survive what will be the cold winters, when the season or when the new fad or phenomenon comes to an end. There's always a new thing. The genie is out of the bottle. We cannot put the genie back in the bottle. For many years, women fought to ensure that they were not sexually objectified. Some women, the suffragettes, did a tremendous amount of work in changing the psychology and the psyche of men to see women as equals, as not just sexual objects, but as human beings with dignity, human beings worthy of admiration for things other than what they were gifted at birth. For some reason, some women have taken us back to where things were initially, and so we have this sexualized world of ours in the West, and therefore young girls are being drawn in pursuit of money to sexualize themselves to get something in return. Now, I will make, as I go forward, initially I will take no moral position. I'll try to be amoral. I will deal with women, firstly, and the key thing will be for me to provide some information on how to think about, how to optimize the decision you've made already to be on OnlyFans. Because what most people do not have is a strategy. Now, my strategy is not to tell you how to make money. My strategy is to simply say, this too shall pass. And perhaps, can we think about how you can get the benefits, recognize the trade-offs, and prepare for what will be the end of season at some point in the future. The genie is out of the bottle. We cannot put the genie back in the bottle. But let me start with a question, because I think this is the key question with regards to this whole new phenomenon. The question is, how do we live with this new experience? How do we navigate what seems to be a new perspective, interest, desire, a way of living and working that most people have embraced. On one side, you have men who are buying the information and the content, and on the other side, you have the producers, the women primarily, who are producing based on a demand. Now, fundamentally, with regards to economic matters, I see myself as a classical liberal, meaning I believe in fair exchange, equal exchange, exchange by two parties that are deemed mutually acceptable, and fair exchange is not robbery. Therefore, whatever two people agree to, if they are functional adults, and in doing so, they do not impinge on other people's ability to pursue their aspirations, that I'm all for it. Now, this simply means, with regards to Onlyfans, recognizing that there is no force, threat, or coercion being used by either party. Some people are buying content for entertainment purposes, and some are consuming the content they've purchased, and some are willing to produce the content on that basis. Fair exchange. And I think all is fair. What I, however, want to deal with is the leftovers. About 1% of all the women on OnlyFans are producing and making about 99% of all the money. That simply means that there is a 1% fallacy, or 99% fallacy, whichever you choose to use, that roughly 99% of the women online, unfortunately, will make nothing. There has to be a strategy to ensure that they think about things in the long term. So I will try to cover as much as I can and all parties to the best of my ability. To understand something, this is an opinion. This is not the truth. This is not a fact. This is how I see things. And part of the encouragement I had was a simple one. What if I had a daughter? This is a what if. And she was 22 and 23. And I loved her very much. And she decided she wanted to start producing sexual content on OnlyFans, or whatever the equivalent is. Would I disown her despite the love I have for her? The answer would be, of course not. What I would be expected to do is to be available and to be capable for when she needs me. I would hope that the things that I have taught her over the years will bring her back to where she should be. But in the event that my teachings had failed and she's made a choice as a functional adult, I would hope to guide her in such a way that she can still pursue her aspirations. But I make sure that I look out for the obstacles that could be in her way. That is where wisdom and discernment comes from. Older men and older women can say, we can see things that you may not have calculated as a younger person. So we'll let you take the journey yourself because it is your journey in your life. But we want to be giving you things like a shopping list. Be aware of when you get to junction 6, there is an exit. You can take that exit at junction 6. If you choose to keep traveling, when you get to junction 8, there's another opportunity. But if you do break down between 6 and 8, there's a telephone box that you can call for emergency purposes. And that's what I hope this session will be. I will make mistakes. I will say things that perhaps most women do not agree with, and most men do not agree with. I come in good faith, and I come from the perspective of someone who's a teacher, hoping that I can provide you with things that you can refer back to, should you need to. Now, let me start with something that I think is similar, like a historical truth, an analogy that perhaps people might relate to. In 2008, 2009, we had the financial crisis. Irrespective of where you were in the world, you knew that there was something happening in the financial industry that was of some significance. What ensued was the failure of so many banks, and a recession, and something that changed the financial system in a very negative way. I'm not going to speak about the financial crisis. I want to go back a few years before that occurred. Back in 2005, 6, and 7, people had started to observe that there were so many deals being done in the real estate arena. There was a man called Chuck Prince. Chuck Prince was Charles Owen's Prince, And he was the chairman and the CEO of Citigroup, one of the largest and one of the biggest investment banking firms and banks out there. Chuck Prince said, about a year and a half or 2 years before the crisis, he said, all of this is going to end badly when the liquidity runs out. But when the music is still playing, you have to dance. Chuck Prince realized, from what he could see, a very astute, shrewd businessman could see that there were things that were just not right in the financial markets, especially in the real estate market with regards to credit lending and all the securitizations of several different, you might say, derivatives and credit facilities. He recognized that things were not right, but there was so much money sloshing around, and therefore people were buying and people were selling. He also said this will end badly, but, and here is a big but, and this is where I start to bring a comparison to today. He said, when the music is playing, you have to dance. Now, if you've ever remembered or played the game musical chairs, you have a fixed number of chairs and a certain number of people going around and the music plays. As the game continues, the number of chairs reduce. The idea being you get to a point where there are fewer chairs and more people, and someone is left losing the game, or a few people are holding the bag, as we use in finance. The point being, at some point, you have to understand when the music is playing too loud. Perhaps you've been on the dance floor too long, and it's time to exit. That is one of the things I'll be talking about as we talk about Onlyfans, which is, I understand the temptation and the attraction. What might seem as easy money. This is the .com crisis all over again, and some people are making a lot of money, and it is attracting the youthful, the young, the innocent, who were not raised in that moral perspective, but who were now tempted by that pursuit of money. And the question is, how do we deal with the devil? I'm not saying OnlyFans is the devil. I'm simply saying, how do you contend with something that is not necessarily in your best interest? Now, the first approach is to say, avoid it. Well, that takes me back to one of the very famous and ancient stories from the books of antiquities. We talk about the garden. You have two people placed in a garden with an instruction. Now, whether you believe in the story or you don't, I think for the purpose of my teachings, it serves an important reminder. Two people, you can have anything in the garden, but you cannot have of the tree in the middle of the garden. For when you eat of that tree, you will die. I'm not here to speak about religion or theology per se. I want to draw your attention to something that is inherent in every single one of us. At the core of Adam and Eve's choice to have some of the fruit was something that was built into them, which is the desire for more. They were no different to those who are presently alive, such as yourself and myself, and they are no different to those who are on OnlyFans looking to make something decent for themselves. The desire for more is something we all have. It's inherent in our creation. We are created to grow, to manifest, to expand, and to be seeking for further expression in whatever category we can. The question is, how do we channel that desire in the right way? And even if we do not channel it in the right way, how do we ensure that it doesn't come back and become an obstacle to our future longevity, happiness, fulfillment, and more? There's a simple answer. Begin with the end in mind. Now, Stephen Covey wrote an important book. He was a business consultant, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he said, begin with the end in mind. In other words, and that's how, in my opinion, all of creation starts. It begins with the end in mind, then it comes back to the big start line, and then it begins the process of creation. It never begins from the start. So in order to be successful on OnlyFans, and to recognize that you want to minimize the likelihood of failure, you begin with the end in mind, which means you start with 10, 15, 30 years into the future. What kind of life would you like to have? Where would you like to be? Who would you like to be around? And then you work backwards and you allow those steps to help you choose the decisions you're making. Now understand, I'm not saying you shouldn't make OnlyFans. if that's what you want to do. But let's be aware that using the word OnlyFans is a pseudonym for what we would call previously porn stars and prostitutes, whatever you want to call or use. But begin with the end in mind. Now, there is a price for entertainment because people are obviously paying for said entertainment. I'm going to say a few things and I'll close today's session because I think it's important. Number one, I do not agree, generally speaking, with the position that most men take, which is that all women who are on OnlyFans are doomed not to be able to find a suitable partner in their eyes, and not to be able to find a partner that would take them seriously for marriage. And I do not definitely do not agree that men in the West particularly are suddenly this moral protectors and who are looking out for society's best interest, and that modern men are somehow better than modern women. I think both parts of the gender spectrum have flaws. I have said before that in my opinion, about 80% of all the men in the West were raised and currently have a feminine installation software. They would be what we would call, generally speaking, beta males, because they were raised not in the masculine frame, they don't understand manhood, and therefore what we are finding is men in the West, despite what most small group of men are saying, most men in the West are generally accepting. We raised a generation of more ambitious, more entrepreneurial, hard-working, but also very hard women. A generation of harder women and softer men. So what you're finding, generally speaking, is that there's been a shift in the balance of power. Women are the ones who are calling and leading most homes, and men are supporting. I'm not going to deal with good, bad, or indifferent, but that's the case. And that simply means whether you go into porn, or pornography, or prostitution, or sexual, whatever you might call it, selling yourself, buddy, there will be someone that will accept you whenever you decide you've had enough of the whole game. What we want to do, however, if I was speaking to you as an advisor, is how do you maximize your decision-making process, but also minimize any potential loss? There is a place for entertainment. There are 3 things. If you want to change your life, you need to be in the right state, you need to have the right story, and you need to have the right strategy. I'm going to focus on strategy. And as I go along, I'll talk about other things. But let me conclude as follows. I look forward to this conversation and this series, primarily because there will be so many things I learn in the process. But more importantly, I think we need to start having a healthy conversation so that we're not simply shunning women and saying, you're bad and we're good. We need to be saying, well, think about the trade-offs you're going to make. You see, the choices women make will come with costs. They will have constraints. There will be consequences. And there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. The idea that perhaps some women are thinking, this is the new fountain of money and there are no downsides is wrong. The idea that there are only downsides and no upside is wrong. Stand on the edge of the coin so you can see both sides. And the purpose would be to give you an argument for and an argument against, and allow you to combine both and make up your mind what is best for you. But more importantly, this is not just about the content producers. How do you deal with this? If it's your sister, it's your wife, it's your cousin or nephew, a friend of yours who has started this lifestyle. Do you shun them? Do you disown them? Do you withhold your love for them? I think that would be the wrong thing to do. The question is, can you still love them? Can you be like, see them as Mary Magdalene, someone who's still deserving of love, and you can still be forgiving in your heart and still be available for them when they need you. Now, to do so, you need to be open-minded and be able to argue both sides of the equation. Like in a debate club many years ago, and I use this as a regular reference. Now, when I was growing up, let's say you were in a debate team. Your coach would provide a topic of study, but you were never told whether you would be debating for or debating against the motion. you had to prepare. And you had to be able to argue both sides just as well. Now, to do so, you had to understand both sides. Now, there is a saying that you should not be able to argue with another party until you can argue their position just as well or better than they can. This series, I am going to cover both sides of the argument, and I hope you find it of some value. I really look forward to this.